Advice to someone who's living paycheck to paycheck is that you don't have to live paycheck to paycheck. You know, for me, so before I got into this kind of work, I was a management consultant. And so many people will ask me, well, what exactly is a management consultant? And I tell them it can mean anything. But essentially, we were high-paid temporary staff to other corporations. So, you know, I had really big clients, you know, from some of the sodas in your refrigerator to, you know, the debit cards in your wallet. If I look in your wallet, I can find probably 3 of my clients. I work for a big company. What they would do is they'd staff me out to those companies to do various things for them. My background, I was working in finance. So nonetheless, I was making well over $100,000 a year and living paycheck to paycheck. You know, we always think about paycheck to paycheck, or often the common narrative around that is that people are living paycheck to paycheck because they don't make enough money. Like, you know, those people, if they made more, they had more money, they wouldn't have to live paycheck to paycheck. I don't agree. I think if you manage your expenses differently, you wouldn't be living paycheck to paycheck. The reality is that living paycheck to paycheck is not about how much money you make. It's about how you spend your money. You know, I do believe that you always should be pushing to make more money, building multiple revenue streams, but before you can do that, you still have a responsibility to manage how you spend your money better. You know, for me, if I look back on that time, if someone were to say, well, Malcolm, you kind of need to check your expenses. I remember, I think it was my mother who said to me, you should look at how you spend. And my excuse was, well, you know, I live in D.C. It's so expensive to live here. After you pay, you know, the mortgage and the car note and the this and the that, is very little left over. So I was making excuses. Well, let's take a step back. What about the eating out every day? Because I would do that very often. What about when it was time to go buy clothes? You know, was I buying them on sale? Was I willing to drive to the outlets? Or was I just buying whatever I wanted in the moment? What about when it was time to go out to brunch and things of that nature? And I would go out there, and then when they say, do you want bottomless mimosas? Oh, yeah, sure. It's just an extra $15. Who's counting? You know? I would do all that kind of stuff. You know, I had this really big inflated lifestyle where even though I was making $100,000 and some odd a year, I was spending that exact amount of money. If I had one check not come in, the first thing I would have probably had to do was dip into the little tiny bit of savings I had, which was barely nothing. And then after I went through that, I would have probably had to borrow money from my 401k. And if I would have depleted that, then it would have been calling my mother. And, you know, my lifestyle, even back then, was bigger than my mother's lifestyle. I made more money than her. I had surpassed the income that my mother made years ago. So, you know, a lot of us are living that way, where we've been fortunate enough to be able to build these careers, get education, do all these other things. And the reality is that we are sometimes the highest earning people in our circles and in our families. So if our ship starts to sink, no one's got a lifeboat big enough to save us, because we got big bills, you know. And so I take that to say that a lot of us can't afford to live paycheck to paycheck, because we're our only support system at the end of the day. We're our only safety net. So if the idea of saving isn't sexy to you, fine. It doesn't have to be saving. It doesn't have to be sexy. But is the idea of potentially being financially insolvent, potentially having nothing, does that jolt you into the idea of saying maybe I should spend less than what I earn so I can at least have a little something left over so I can set aside for my future? Spending less than what you earn, not living paycheck to paycheck, is not always just about building wealth. Sometimes it's about being able to know that you're creating a situation where you can be your own bank, where if it comes down to it, you can be your own safety net. Because once you know you can be your own safety net, then you can have a sense of security within yourself, because you know, all right, I'm good. And if ever there was an opportunity to perhaps start a business or do something different, you know, well, maybe I could leave this job. I got 8 months of savings here. Maybe I could afford to leave this job and give myself a try doing that business that I desire to do. A lot of people are not starting businesses and not doing the things that can build them unimaginable amounts of wealth. Let me tell you this, being a business owner is fabulous. It is fabulous. But a lot of people are not doing it, not because they're afraid, they're doing it because they can't. They're not doing it because they can't afford to. That's reality. They're not becoming a business owner because they can't afford to. They say, well, what if I don't make any money? Well, you probably won't make any money in the beginning, but if you have enough savings set aside, you can survive that. So when I talk about not living paycheck to paycheck, I'm not just talking about saving for the sake of saving. I'm saying not living paycheck to paycheck so you can create a safety net for yourself, and more importantly, so you can create a foundation so that you can build wealth and abundance on top of it. Because if you can do that, I mean, you can really transform your life. And it's a beautiful thing having wealth and abundance. It really is.